So let's take a look at the Call of Duty series. Well, this time we're of course taking a look at Modern Warfare. So Modern Warfare was released in 2011, in 2007, and took place in 2011. The game primarily focuses on two plot lines: a war in the Middle East where you are in the shoes of Sergeant Paul Jackson, and of course a Russian civil war between ultranationalists and loyalists, where you are in the shoes of Sergeant Soap McTavish. So, that was the game. Was anything special? Well, it pretty much was. So, let's get on with the rest of the story. So, the game starts off pretty much just giving you the rundown of what's happening. There's war in the Middle East, and there's a Russian civil war. And of course, you're basically dealing with both. As Sergeant Paul Jackson, you are trying to hunt down a man known as al-Assad after he killed another man, al-Fulani, on national television and took control of his country. Unbeknownst to the Americans, al-Assad is pretty much working under another man known as Iman Zakhaev, who wants to restore Russia to its Cold War days. And of course, it's during this that he is pretty much also, it's also this that he's kind of also focusing on, diverting attention away from Russia by allowing al-Assad to do this and kind of encouraging him to do so. Then, of course, it's during this time that the SAS are, of course, trying to put an end to the Russian Civil War, and eventually are trying to make an attempt to find al-Assad after a nuclear bomb goes off, resulting in the death of 30,000 soldiers. So, of course, that's pretty much Act 1. Act 2 is just them kind of trying to find al-Assad, and it eventually gets revealed that Price knew who sent, he knows the guy behind all this. Iman Zakhaev was the leader of the ultranationalists, or was a leader, and someone that Price knew. Price was assigned to assassinate him back in 1996, but it failed, resulting in his arm being severed. Iman is of course back 15 years later, and is basically still the evil bad guy that he once was. So, the group is trying to make their way to him, and as of course involving them going after his son Victor, who ends up killing himself to avoid capture. This enrages Iman Zakhaev, who threatens the US with missiles if they do not withdraw. This of course doesn't happen, and he sends warheads towards the eastern seaboard. The SAS and USMC have to launch a joint operation in order to prevent the missiles from hitting the US. They're able to disarm them before they can hit, but are chased throughout Russia by ultranationalist forces. This, of course, ends with a bridge being destroyed and much of the SAS being incapacitated, along with the deaths of Griggs and Gaz, who we've gotten to know quite a bit throughout the game. The only really survivors are, of course, Captain Price and Soap, but a distraction from the loyalists is able to give Soap time to kill Iman Zakhaev along with his bodyguards. Of course, the game ends as the loyalists kind of rescue them, and of course, the Russian government denies any involvement in what happened and just claims that was a military test. The game ends with a epilogue mission called Mile High Club, which has no addition to the main story, but is still interesting regardless. So of course, Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 came out in 2009 and took place in 2016, 5 years after the original Modern Warfare. So of course, the plot lines for this one is, the Task Force 141 going after a man known as Makarov, who was the protege of Iman Zakhaev, and really extreme, like even more extreme than the ultranationalists, which kind of led to him being kicked out, if I recall correctly. And so Makarov's basically a terrorist spreading fur across Europe. And, well, a new soldier named Private Joseph Allen is, of course, tasked with infiltrating his group by General Shepard. And, of course, this doesn't go so well, as Allen is left for dead in a Moscow airport after Makarov launches a terrorist attack on it. And, of course, Makarov is 2 steps ahead and had NATO weapons, and of course ordered his inner circle to only speak in English, as to make it seem like it was the US that did this. Now, of course, there's kind of question about how Makarov even knew about this. Well, that's pretty much, well, they were able to break a ACGS module that got shot down earlier before the game started, and of course, that's what 2 Task Force 141 members were trying to get. Those, of course, being Soap and Roach. But, of course, unbeknownst to them, the Russians already cracked it and kind of knew all that they needed to know. And so it begins the real plot of Modern Warfare 2. A war with Russia, and, of course, the Task Force 141 trying to find Makarov. So, well, pretty much the rest of the game is just Private Miras and his fellow Marines fighting across the eastern seaboard of the U.S., trying to regain control of the White House to make it, to make, all the military personnel realize that America's not falling yet, and of course Task Force 141 trying to hunt down Makarov. They of course rescue a man as prisoner 67 who is revealed to be Price. He got captured before the game started, after Operation Kingfish kind of failed, which, if I recall correctly, was an assassination attempt on Makarov. And of course, Price and Roach, along with other members of Task Force 141, storm a submarine base where Price launches a nuke into outer space and causes an EMP, which kind of allows soldiers in the US to kind of get an advantage over the Russian forces, as before then the Russian forces were kind of eating away at all of their military readiness. So of course that's kind of a very quick recap of Modern Warfare 2. So of course the game is close to ending at this point, and Task Force 141 is of course split into 2 groups where they try to hunt down Makarov. One is in a boneyard in Afghanistan, and the other one is his house and the other one is in his safe house in Georgia. Not like, the U.S. Georgia, but a country named that. So of course this does not go well because, well, Shepard was the bad guy all along. He basically went psychotic because he lost all of these men 5 years ago when a nuke went off. He basically wants to be seen as a war hero, so he kind of, basically betrayed Task Force 141, made it so that, this war would start so he could kill Makarov and be seen as a war hero. Of course, with Task Force 141 potentially knowing about this, he basically tries cleaning up loose ends. Price and Soap are the only ones that really do survive this, and of course they go after Shepard with Makarov's help. They don't magically join forces with Makarov, but he does give them Shepard's location, but it's very clear that both of them are going to go after each other. Now of course Price and Soap go after Shepard, which kind of doesn't really end all that good because, well, Soap is wounded by Shepard, and he basically puts the beat down on Price. Soap is able to kill him, but the 2 are wanted as war criminals. Because before this, Shepard kind of made it so that they were, in a lot of trouble after this. But of course, with them killing a U.S. military general, that basically made it so that they're on everyone's hate lists. The game ends as Nikolai arrives, and him and Price try to get Soap into somewhere safer so they can treat his wounds. And of course, the final game I will be covering today is, of course, Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3, which was released in 2011. So, Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3 takes place in 2016 and 2017. It picks up immediately after the events of Modern Warfare 2. So, Soap is basically dying and they gotta get him medical attention. Meanwhile, in New York, the Delta team are, of course, pushing off a Russian advance. The war is kind of switching tides at this point, and of course, Makarov is at play again as he tries to make an attempt to eliminate the rest of Task Force 141 by attacking a safe house in India where they are getting Soap's wounds treated. This, of course, introduces us to our two protagonists, Yuri and, of course, Frost. Yuri is a new member of Task Force 141, and Sergeant Frost is a part of the Delta team. A few months later, President Vorshevsky is flying out to make peace with the West, because the war doesn't really seem like it's, going anywhere. This, of course, is prevented when Makarov and his forces attack the plane they're on, causing it to crash, and they take the president and his daughter Elena hostage. Then, of course, it's the dawn of World War III. So, yeah, World War III essentially began in Modern Warfare 3. As with the president held hostage, Makarov and the Russian army launches a bunch of terrorist attacks across Europe and begin invading various countries like the UK, Germany, France, I think Italy, and of course the Czech Republic. So, yeah. So that is pretty much like most of the rest of the game is just like World War III is going on and Task Force 141 is still hunting Makarov. They try assassinating Makarov, but this fails, and it is revealed that Makarov knows Yuri, and Soap dies from his wounds reopening. Price is angered and threatens Yuri, but Yuri is basically able to tell Price how he knew Makarov, and the two have a shaky relationship but still work together. Meanwhile, Delta Team is trying to find Versace's daughter Elena. As well, if Makarov finds his daughter, the Russian president will essentially break and give him the nuclear launch codes, which is definitely not something that should happen because, well, it's Makarov, he's evil. They're of course able to find Versace and his daughter, eventually rescue them along with what remains of Task Force 141 in a joint operation, and the war kind of ends. Although, well, Delta Team themselves, they kind of died towards the end of the game, which is kind of sad. Although Frost isn't there. He just kind of disappears after the mission in Germany. And of course, with the war ended, Makarov kind of goes into hiding again. But Price lets Makarov know that his war ends with him, and he is coming for him. The final mission focuses on Price and Yuri storming the Hotel Oasis in an attempt to kill Makarov. This, of course, doesn't go to plan because Makarov tries escaping, Yuri gets wounded and makes Price leave him behind, and Price causes a helicopter to crash onto the roof. He is very wounded and is calling towards a gun when Makarov appears. Makarov tries shooting him, but Yuri intervenes, attacks Makarov, but is of course shot, which does give Price a opening to, of course, attack Makarov and kill him. The game ends as we witness Makarov hang and Price lights a cigar. That's the Modern Warfare series. So, of course, the question is, well, what else was so good about it? The multiplayer for all of these games was just really phenomenal. It was pretty good. The multiplayer for these games was honestly really good. Then there's, of course, the additions of Spec Ops and Survival in Modern Warfare 2 and 3. All of those were really good too. I like the campaign in these games. It's very well written, and there's some really awesome moments throughout this trilogy. Now, of course, the games also did get two remasters. Call of Duty Modern Warfare Remastered and Modern Warfare 2 Campaign Remastered were released in 2016 and 2020. And, well, I guess I'm going to be giving some quick thoughts about these ones. Modern Warfare Remastered is a fairly interesting game. It's a facelift for the original Modern Warfare, but it does add some new trophies, and did add quite a bit of replayability. And overall, it's a remaster done right. Modern Warfare 2, on the other hand, well, the campaign remastered is pretty good. It's just the campaign remastered. There's no Spec Ops or no multiplayer, which is kind of sad because Modern Warfare 2 has what is probably the most iconic multiplayer according to some of the fan base, and Spec Ops itself was also pretty fun. But overall, the Modern Warfare series, I like it. It was pretty enjoyable. It had some really great storytelling, some really awesome action moments, and just overall really defined what the Call of Duty series was. And, it's really amazing that they were able to just wrap it up into 3 wonderful games. And yeah, that's really all I have to say about this one. So, of course, thank you for watching, and see you all next time.